Hello there everyone and welcome back. It's time to dive into the Space Marines, and I will have to admit I've had a little bit of difficulty trying to figure out something that works there outside of like going with the carbon copy of all the other players. It seems like with the heavy reliance on the boarding torpedoes. Well, it's not even the reliance on boarding torpedoes, it's more of a reliance on the strike cruisers and sheer amount of hunters we kind of seen in that one orc game. And to be honest, I was experimenting a little bit trying to use the Battle Barge, in all honesty, when I originally started off. I had a little bit of success early on, and I've been trying to hopefully get some longevity out of like the carrier versions of the strike cruisers, and it seems to work out well. The problem is that I've been consistently running into is that the shields don't go down fast enough for my bombardment cannons to actually do the critical hits that's necessary of them, especially if I'm trying to chip them down at range before committing the engaging in close for the coup de grace. In all honesty, they tend to get on me before I do the damage necessary, even with my warp jump and the additional mobility of my strike cruisers and novas. But I think I have a few ideas there. I definitely been having good luck with like the 2v2s trying to experiment with that for hell. The 1,000-point army I've been fielding, well, that's not helpful. The Glory Seekers, as I dubbed it, it's just a battle barge with 3 vanguards. And I gotta say, that's been working amazingly well. Instead of the Battle Barge being like the sheer muscle of the group, it's really meant to be the tank for my ally, more often than not. And I'm relying on my vanguards to kind of cripple and blind the enemies, at least by destroying and sniping any frigates that are easily accessible, and just harassing any vulnerable cruisers. And hell, it's a lot more easier to pull it off in 2v2s because of course it's a lot more chaotic when you have half your fleet under your control and the other half is being controlled by another player. It's kind of tricky to keep it organized, especially when they're completely two different factions, like the Eldar for a perfect example. So I've had a lot of good luck there, but sadly I've yet to truly be able to transition it over into 1v1, since one of the variants I also experimented with is, instead of the strike cruisers, I've gone with vanguards. So in all honesty, I still think there's a lot for me to figure out with the Space Marines, mainly because they are a little bit awkward to kind of get to full value out of. They rely more on their critical hits and like crippling an opponent more so than actually destroying them. It's made apparent by the fact that their weaponry is a lot weaker in comparison to the Imperial Navy and I suppose Chaos, since they're the easiest to compare themselves to. So what I'm honestly doing, I'm going back to the original fleet I start off with way back in the open beta in December. I'm going with the 6 strike cruiser fleets. I'm not going with a bunch of hunters to base my strategy on that. If anything, I like the brute force, the muscle that the strike cruisers do provide. They have the mobility. And to put it bluntly, to put it simply, I'm going to be playing them like the Ashuriani. At least that's the intention anyway. It's going to be a lot different since I'm not going to have the convenience of always being hit in, since my boosters are immediately going to give me away, as a mission dissipator does not work on strike cruisers. And I haven't even experimented with I'm all over the place today. Probably because I'm really anxious how this is going to go, since I only did like maybe 4 or 5 matches with the 6 strike cruiser fleet, if I were to be perfectly honest. I spent all the other time trying to figure out how to make a battle barge work. So this is probably as raw as it could be even with my preparation I tried to put into this fleet. Nonetheless, it's been working surprisingly well, I gotta say. It's going to be tricky, since again, I'm not going to have the convenience of boosting and keeping myself hit in. So I'm wondering if I should do the bold route or try and play it a little more cautious. Which doesn't sound like Space Marines, but that's the fleet nonetheless, and because of what I said earlier, getting through the shields is pretty important for, hell, not just the bombardment cannons, but to even enable my lightning strikes. That's a big deal too if I'm going to chip anything down and not put myself in a precarious position, especially if it's, for example, like 6 strike cruisers for crying out loud, or not strike cruisers, but 6 grand cruisers at that. 5 or 6 or however many they can afford. They like to turtle, and trying to dive in that, especially when they have armor-piercing ammo, is a little bit tenuous, needless to say. Although I will be honest, I could not for the life of me figure out what this second upgrade should be, since in all honesty, anything that's specific for the flagship is not really all that impactful, I won't argue. Enhanced range doesn't help me all that much. Reduced cooldowns, maybe once in a blue moon, that might be valuable. And a mission dissipator does nothing for me unless I want my novas to be more mobile. So I'm at a loss for what my second upgrade should be in all honesty. Since, like I said, if I can enable lightning strikes with the disruption bomb, at least the morale loss from the assassin could be really damn impactful. I want to argue, especially if I'm not ready to commit to an engagement just yet. There is possibilities there. Nonetheless, it's like I said, this feels like it hasn't been refined just yet, so I'm a little bit worried how this may turn out, but it's been feeling very promising, so let's have ourselves a good time at least. Alright, we're facing off against Yukari here. This ought to be interesting, since it seems like I played against Yukari in the warm-up match if I remember correctly, and hell, I had a match with Yukari play earlier that I wasn't really happy with that matchup, mainly because my opponent let his frigates get hit by boring torpedoes, and really it just came down to me boring them to death. It felt like an underwhelming match there, never mind the fact I did do a handful of mistakes burning my combustion gauge, trying to get in close, which you kind of need to do, as Space Marines I want to argue, due to the fact that all the Eldari fleets are kind of really mobile, so I need to use that speed to my advantage. It comes down to ultimately if I want to boost. Do I want to boost and reveal myself? Because getting spread out is a big mistake, potentially. Although, if I want to go for this third point, it's not like I could station myself the best, honestly. It's just a question of where do I want to push him so that way he's away from the other points. If I had to come up with a choice. So, maybe boosting is the way to go. At least so that way I could get my fleets together quicker. It never does feel good trying to do that, though, mind you. Because it does give away my fleet, needless to say. At least this is not looking entirely like battleships just yet. We got two potential frigates here, cruisers and cruisers. Remains to be seen what we're up against, though. And at least I have two frigates to kind of be my eyes. I just gotta make sure they don't get sniped. That's the catch. That's the main thing I'm gonna have a hard time with. But at least, if I could get a good disruption bomb on them, a lightning strike will cripple their morale heavily since they are kind of disorganized after all. So that is one plus I can use to my advantage to quickly cause a mutiny on said Yukari fleet. Gotta be ready to group up. Do I boost with the second squad or not? A lot of uncertainties that needs to be figured out, since I don't know if this is a good idea to boost, like I said. Although, to be honest, it is kind of required if I want to be really mobile and aggressive. It's kind of like how I've been doing with my Ashuriani, or at least Eldar type of play. It's kind of important in that regard, I would argue. Although burning my combustion gauge completely is a big mistake there. But I can at least spot this will recharge quickly. Hell, let me just boost. That was a big mistake letting that get burnt out, but at least I can reveal them as necessary. If anything, maybe have two frigates here, because I can at least shoot them some. And I'm making my way to that third point anyway. Okay, I hear you. I hear you, you bugger.
The enemy has seized a strategic area.
Successful teleport strike.
One more. One more for the road, please. Oh, you're at full charge now, you jerk.
Redirecting. To where we are needed.
The torpedoes still managed to do some damage there at least.
Engines engaged.
So I like to say it's promising.
New vector acknowledged.
It gives away the micro warp jump at least. So there's always that. And I have second squad to give me some protection.
We stand ready.
If anything, I want to try and rush these things down, ram them. Ideally, although I'm burnt all my combustion gauge.
I am listening.
Alright, as much as I like to cap this point, we'll worry about that in a moment.
Show us the enemy.
Let's get the fleets reassembled so that way this frigate's not an easy kill.
We stand ready.
Ideally, well, it looks like my opponent's already trying to grab points behind me, so that's fine there.
One of your strategic areas.
I like to think, I don't know what kind of damage I actually did to the flagship, mind you, with the micro warp jump, so
I am listening.
I did hit with a couple of boarding torpedoes and did lightning strike it to hell, just not with everything. So I want to say it's really damn hindered by the morale damage alone,
Let's advance.
if I were to be honest.
Where we are needed.
Let's just grab this
Give us
point.
purpose.
Sure, my opponent is getting the points as well, but
Repositioning.
I'm going to try and make a play for these two since they're a lot more accessible.
Purpose.
I think that's my idea at least. I did lose my deck sadly, but it's not like I lost my shield generators at least, so I can be happy with that for the time being.
Command. Show us the enemy.
Now the big
The
question,
enemy has
let me get these
seized
frigates.
strategic area.
Setting priority target. We stand ready.
There are torpedoes on this thing, so keep that in mind.
Position. I am listening.
You have seized a strategic area.
Alright, evasive maneuvers.
Repositioning. Where shall we strike? Enemy in sight.
Alright, drifting Hulk there.
Engines
A bit of a mess. Why aren't you go...
full speed.
Oh, I unbinded one of my groups, so that explains what's going on here, damn it. This is not at all what I want.
Where shall we strike?
But this should be promising nonetheless. Although they did do a morale boost of some kinds.
At your command.
Drifting Hulk there, that's back up. I'm waiting for the self-destruction though.
Ready.
That's something I'm aware of.
At your command. Where shall we strike?
Get my frigates in there, spot this thing quickly.
Enemy in sight. Where shall we strike? For where we are needed.
So far it's looking promising. We've got Drifting Hulk. This one's all sorts of screwed. Now, I need to fire torpedoes. Is there any way to fire torpedoes with that said? Well, outside of rally, this thing's all sorts of dead right now.
Underway. We stand ready.
Now, what I want, group everything up
Engines engaged.
and just murder this thing in his engines.
The enemy.
Sure, he's going after my ship, but the torpedoes were a big whiff at least.
Redirecting.
Do I have another frigate? Not anymore.
Where we are needed.
And okay, ramming. Let's try and kill this thing quickly.
Strike quickly, brothers.
Although, let's see. I want regular boarding.
Underway.
The enemy
Oh,
has
actually, I got all sorts of
seized
boarding
several
options.
strategic points.
I got all sorts of boarding options. I just gotta remember to use them. So that's all the battleships gone, but keep in mind, these things could explode in any moment. Kind of like right now. So everything's gonna make it out but one, and this might actually kill it, but
Where shall we strike?
with 3 battleships gone, that's mutiny. Keep in mind, that other battleship has a mutiny, so
Accumulated
I should be safe.
10% of strategic.
I just gotta deal with a bunch of frigates now,
Give us purpose.
which I argue is a really good thing for me.
Reposition.
What are frigates gonna do after... I do need to make sure that thing is disabled.
Show us the enemy.
But this is looking really damn promising. Just gotta grab the points now.
Command.
I just wish my frigates didn't get killed off there. I forget what actually killed the frigates, to be so honest. It was a bit of a frantic, panicked mess. I'm not gonna lie. I could have prioritized a little bit better. I could have maybe been a little more patient, waiting for boarding actions as opposed to the lightning strike.
I am listening.
But the one downside of doing that is really hard to know when I'm going to be doing this lightning strike on, or the attack with my flagship.
To where we are
It probably is the closest one that shoots first, mind you, or does its ability first.
Accumulated
So that's
50%
something I need to be a little bit
strategic
disciplined
points.
on.
underway.
And actually, you could just run down that thing. It's probably a cruiser, mind you, so let's not get too carried away.
Engines engaged.
If anything, maybe grab the point.
Hold course.
Actually, could just grab the points in all honesty. There are a bunch of frigates, but hell,
Hurry. Calm the
if they're
machine.
just frigates, I should be okay. It's just the lack of vision that's going to be a
Moving to
painful.
position. I am listening.
Oh, I heard boosting. That's all I know, so that could mean anything. Actually, let me get my reload back on for the speed boost.
Show us the enemy.
That'll be pretty good in this regard. And then otherwise it just comes down to points. And I do have boring torpedoes to kind of use.
Stand ready.
I just gotta be ready to use them at a moment's
Where
notice.
shall we strike?
Is what it ultimately comes down to.
At your command.
And otherwise, I would actually end the video now. I'm just not certain if there are actually cruisers. If it's just frigates, I should be fine if I just send 3 frigates out to cap, or the 3 cruisers to cap individual points. That's ultimately what it is.
Purpose.
Since right now it hasn't actually captured a point just yet, so that's fine. And I got 2 points to grab here. These are like the most important 2 points for me to grab, in all honesty, since I have easy access to defend both of them. I just gotta make sure I could potentially still lose to cap, so we gotta be mindful of that.
Engines engaged.
So we'll see how this plays out.
We stand ready.
Now I'm gonna launch some boring torpedoes. It probably is not gonna help me, but at least it gives vision. And it'll force them off the point, maybe even reset the cap. Maybe it won't reset the neutralize of the point though, mind you, but at least it helps in that regard. Hell,
Enemy in sight.
let me send you to continue capping, since we already have these point neutralizers. No, that's not what I want, damn it.
Show us the enemy.
Alright, that's gonna cap a little bit faster, so this is really important to get these points, mind you.
Hold advance. Where shall we strike?
The enemy is seizing one of your strategic areas.
We'll see what happens here, hard to say.
Hold advance.
If anything, I'll probably just skip forward.
The enemy is seizing.
Alright, I think we got this. I skipped ahead a little bit, but
You have seized a
considering
strategic
all
area.
3 frigates are here, I shouldn't have too much of an issue. I just gotta prioritize and kill them off now.
Engaged.
I did lose almost all my points, mind you, but I don't think that's a huge issue just yet. I gotta... Unfortunately, my generator is also down, so it's gonna take a little bit longer than I like, alas, but
Give us
with 2
purpose.
points, this will be over soon.
Hold
Just gotta get my support here of note,
Where shall we strike?
because why aren't I firing? It's just a slow process is what it comes down to. There, 1 frigate down.
Strategic.
That gives me a little bit of points.
Damage at critical level.
Now, let's see if we can do something serious to this thing.
Cannot be denied.
It's on fire. That doesn't really mean much just yet,
Ready.
but
At your command.
could be anyone's game. My shields are about to come back up.
Enemy in sight.
There, shields are up. Shields are up.
Give us purpose.
This should be good for me.
Teleport
This is a victory. It dragged on incredibly long, mind you. So, I don't know how to honestly take that. It was a bit of a weird match, but my opponent decided to fight, and at the end of the day, my armor paid off. Should I have gone with the brace for impact instead? There wasn't really any torpedoes. Hard to say how I could have done that better, aside for getting my engine destroyed or my deck destroyed, I think is what happened, honestly. So maybe that was a moot point. But yeah, got that out of the way. I'm just figuring, what if I had access to my orders, which would have been better, the whole defense or the reload? Technically, probably the reload, I would argue. Yeah, 40% rate of fire speed. I think that would have been the better choice, so long as I was constantly firing. That dragged down to the wire, but at the end of the day, I did manage to spur up my cruisers and at least scare off my opponent. Or at least scared them to the point that they didn't want to commit to grabbing any of the objectives, mind you, let alone the ones I neutralized, which maybe I probably should have done sooner. Hard to really say, but it's a win at least. Ooh, Mechanicus. Oh, it's a Charlon too, so this will be interesting. I have the mobility to deal with the Novacans decently well, and I should have, if I can get good boarding attempts on them, I can cripple the fleet really quickly. It's just a question of what a Charlon's feeling here, I suppose. But, moral of the story, Novacans can be a bit of a pain. So, going with reload probably is really important to keep my combustion gauge going. Again, do I reveal myself early to get some early momentum? That's what I'm genuinely curious about. That's the thing that will require a little bit of experimentation. And you are not my second fleet there. So I'm wondering, in theory, this will work really well if I can start getting my boarding attempts in, just because of the more fragile crew of the Mechanicus. But the Novacans, I gotta make sure not to run a combustion gauge. That's the most important rule here. Using it recklessly is gonna get me in a lot of trouble. Actually, let me just move it on forward here. And I was wondering if it's a good idea or not. I'm going to do it anyway.
Repositioning.
And at least with my 2 strike cruiser squads. I don't have any fighters, but this looks relatively straightforward, doesn't it? Potentially straightforward. Actually, I forgot my orders too, but reload doesn't really do anything while I'm using my combustion gauge, so I'm not really burned much at the moment.
I am listening.
Gotta be mindful of the range, though.
Away.
So, number 1 rule, watch this combustion gauge, try not to let it go below half for the evasive maneuvers. Well, your beacon's kind of pointless there for the time being, outside maybe the frigates. That might be the exception there.
Show us.
At least I get more sway on the map, being willing to kind of go forward as aggressively as I am.
Show us the enemy.
And then I could grab this point relatively well. I just gotta get a good opening window. Alright, so fighters. I gotta figure out which one are they going after.
Moving to position.
Because this will be easy to kind of deter to an extent.
Repositioning.
But it's good to know that it's just the same old, like, dictators and all that, I suppose.
You have seized a strategic area.
Now let's just capture everything.
All power to engines.
I don't need to do much, I just gotta get in the gas cloud for a split second just to mess with the fighters.
You have seized a strategic area.
Just for a moment. That's part of the reason why I thought it was a mistake, mind you, to reveal myself, but that works.
To where we are needed.
I wonder, I should just shoot down those fighters in all
The
seriousness.
enemy has seized a strategic area.
I'm thinking about it a little bit too much, mind you, but I should just shoot down these fighters to kind of minimize whatever potential a Charlatan will have for later.
I am listening.
Otherwise, these frigates, I gotta watch them, they're likely to get hit by Nova cannons.
To where we
And
are
then
needed.
otherwise, let's see, bombers, they're gonna do nothing. In theory, lost contact with them, so they shouldn't do much, right? And even then, I could shoot them down really quick once these fighters are down.
Show us the enemy.
Alright,
Underway.
there goes one salvo.
Listening.
It keeps the bombers alive, so that's
Seized a strategic
one
area.
interesting value out of the Nova cannons, if I were to be honest.
Position.
I regret I regret using my brace for impact because it's giving me no value at this point, but
Strategic area.
alright.
Hold course.
And I am marked, so
All power to engines.
let's see. I wonder when those bombers were launched, in all honesty. In all honesty,
Advance.
I was talking about maybe gain value.
Show us the enemy.
Okay. I have a better idea.
Acknowledged. Repositioning.
Let's see if we can take out these frigates.
Moving to position.
It's going to be a little bit tricky,
Where shall we
but
strike?
yeah, you better run. Oh, and neutralize the points,
Enemy
I think. How interesting, you're still capping? I should get my second fleet over here. At least start making a move over.
Halt. Advance.
Because they just burnt their combustion gauge. That could easily be used against me.
To where we are needed.
Alright, 2 charges. I'm fine with this.
Full speed.
I just gotta make sure only get hit by 1, ideally.
Underway.
Best case situation. Or actually, I'm gonna dodge all of them.
Give us purpose.
Alright, that's 2 shots down.
At your command.
And Charlatan's getting a little bit
In
impatient.
sight.
This is working out well. Time to reload. Get that combustion gauge up.
And ready. Engines engaged.
And a Charlatan does have fighters. So these boring torpedoes are probably gonna do crap. Assuming they don't hit my own ships.
Hold course.
Because I'm not controlling this the best here. For the time being. But with 3 points, hell,
Show us the enemy.
I'm half tempted to just go over here and grab those
We
points.
stand ready. I am listening.
I say that, but I need to defend my fleet.
Strategic area.
In fact, my boarding potential is amazing. I told you about this before.
Where shall we strike?
Can I at least combo this off properly?
Hold course. All power to engines. Give us purpose.
This might hurt,
Moving to position.
but I think it's going to hurt a Charlatan more. Is my thought process here.
Underway.
You
I just wish I had time to actually prioritize my... That's the problem, why I wish I had hotkeys.
Critical damage.
Is that I didn't have time to prioritize what components to go after.
All servitors and tech marines begin repairs.
I want to... There we go. Just go after everything.
Shall we strike? Enemy in sight.
This is getting a little bit panicky.
That is impossible.
And why won't you board? Oh,
Underway.
that's why. I'm doing a horrible job, that's why.
I am listening. Where we are needed.
Now, this is a little bit annoying because of my hotkeys now suddenly changed because my frigates are in the squad too. It used to be K for Honored Chapter, but now it's not.
Engines in.
And I do have armor-piercing rounds as well, so this helps to a vague extent.
Shall we strike? Halt, advance. At your command.
Now let me get some torpedoes in. I know it's hectic and frantic and I've been doing a bad job, so let's fix this.
Halt, advance.
Let's get some value in my dang weapons already.
I am listening.
And ideally, kill off the crew here.
Moving to position. Full speed. Show us the enemy.
I should be prioritizing components. This is a perfect opportunity for it, even with bombers, mind you. And brace for impact, just because of the sheer amount of fighters we're dealing with too. And that was bad hit.
Where we are needed.
But that ship's gone. That's a drifting hulk. That should be a drifting hulk. I'm again trying to hit K, and of course the hotkeys changed on me because of the frantic boxing, so
Full course.
I don't know how Tindalos can easily fix that, mind you, unless there's independent hotkeys for everything, which probably is not realistic, but that's throwing me off more than anything when I want to rapidly board these ships.
Impossible.
Like right now, I mean, mind you, I'm partly hitting the wrong button,
To engines.
but let's board and finish off this flagship. This should be all but over. And I have 3 points too, so that's game. Bit of a weird one, in all honesty. I don't honestly know how I feel about the Nova cannons. Interestingly enough, they did allow a Charlotte's bombers to return safely, so there was some value at the very beginning. Again, that's kind of the reason why I can't recklessly burn my combustion gauge. There was a window there that could have hit me, and that would have hurt like hell. Thankfully, because they were, I think, on cooldown, or Charlotte never noticed, I was able to take advantage of that. Although, in all honesty, how are you going to really know when I burn my combustion gauge? It's going to be really tricky to know, more often than not. So I don't know what to really say. It felt like a weird match. Okay, Imperial Navy. This should be a good time there. It's kind of the same rules, almost, to the Adeptus Mechanicus. I just gotta put a little more effort in killing off the troops since they are a little more resilient as opposed to the Adeptus Mechanicus. Also, I need to point out this is like my 6th match trying to do a recording, or trying to do for this video, mind you. For my first Yukari opponent was underwhelming. I played another Imperial Navy, which all I did was boarding torpedo him to death, basically, and then there was the 2 y'all racing so far. And I just had a match with Necrons that was underwhelming. I don't know if they were intimidated by the fact I decided to boost, prompted them to kind of jump into the middle of the map, but I don't know if they didn't know about star pulse generators, but I did stagger my boarding torpedo fire to make sure that at least none of them would get, or at least they wouldn't all get blown up by a star pulse generator. And surprisingly, even with the fighters, they still managed to do decent damage. So I don't know what to take out of that one there. It was incredibly underwhelming, and of course my opponent complained about it. Not realizing, I suppose, that the Star Pulse generator could kill the torpedoes. I couldn't tell you. He used it at the end, that's all I know. Otherwise, let's hope. I'm not having the best luck trying to get the most competitive matches people want, especially with my limited time frame, mind you. Hell, I even managed to pause to eat between the last 2 battles and this one here, assuming this makes it to recording. But I'm going to continue to commit to the boosting. I don't know how I feel about it, mind you, if I were to be honest.
Moving to position.
but it allows me to get momentum forward, which is never a bad thing if I'm not worried about taking damage early on, but still. It feels like a brand new player mistake or a new player mistake, just boosting and revealing myself, but it has merit. It's just different from how I play with Eldar, or at least anyone playing Eldar, is that they don't reveal themselves when you're boosting. Oh. 2 battleships. Okay, that's amusing. It's time to put my point defense to the test, I guess. And hell, I had my frigates in a bad spot too. Where are these torpedoes going? Okay, I could potentially just miss them outright. They are likely melted torpedoes. Imperial Navy are like the only faction, at least one of the only factions, that could generally start burning off their torpedoes at range and still have plenty for the real battle itself. So it's not like a terrible mistake, mind you, to do this. Now, got those capped. Okay, 2 Grand Cruisers and 2 battleships. Again, I may be having an unintentional side effect of making my opponent feel like they have to boost forward because I'm doing it. I don't know if that's actually... I just don't know what to think. I feel like I'm having an unintentional side effect here from what I'm doing with this maneuver. Because it is working out. I don't think I care about that point so much. Since I'm going to make a push for this next... I'm going to make a push for their 2 points there and try and chip them down. Well, that was amazingly successful. Okay, boost on out. Yeah, this is a bit of an overreaction, isn't it? And, of course, since they're relying so much on brute force, I don't have the most convenient means to kind of deal... Oh, I have boring torpedoes coming out of them too, so this might be good. I would like to just destroy... I did prioritize weapons, not... I did get a single critical hit on weapons, mind you. Alright. This is looking good. I still have boosters. I'm going to get into gas cloud to kind of minimize my damage a bit. Okay, they're coming towards me, so I should come towards them. Oh. That was a bad mistake, if I were to be honest, because you just left that really damn isolated. There. And that's part that emphasizes my point some, although sadly, you're taking a whole bunch of critical hits, so time to commit to this. I think it's time to commit to this. I am ramming myself, so that's a bit of a mistake, but I can take out a second Grand Cruiser really easy here. Gotta be mindful of potential armor piercing, no armor piercing. Okay, thankfully I didn't do my honor to chapter, so I got easy means to negate this. Okay, this is getting a little bit... This is going to be match 6 potentially. That's underwhelming. The power is real without a doubt. And to be honest, they're also trying... They might do changes to the way boarding works as well in a future patch, so it's possible that this will not be as potent as it potentially seems right now. In all honesty, it may not be an inexperienced player. It's just a player who doesn't know how to deal with the fact that I'm deliberately boosting by choice, as opposed to it being poor decision making. And they just don't know how to deal with that? I honestly don't know what to think. I told you, this is kind of like... This fleet needs a lot of fine-tuning in all seriousness. But I'm waiting for... I have no means to kind of board any ship he decides to reactivate, mind you. Thankfully, he hasn't destroyed them just yet. But considering the little amount of damage they took, kind of seemed a little bit silly to just blow them up immediately. But it would have been painful if they did do that. Especially with the stasis bomb, mind you. Okay. Oh, boring torpedoes are just about to end this. And actually, let me grab these points. I'm getting a little bit careless because of these points situation. And you can repair. You're back in the fight. You lost a bombardment can, mind you. But that's all the capital ships there. Oh, let's see. Let's see what happens here.
Give us purpose.
I'm curious to see what happens here. I'm really trying to get some serious matches. Maybe it's because of my MMR ranking, that's a possibility. Since unlike the majority of other players, I'm kind of jumping between factions every like 2 or 3 days ideally. And that has a completely separate MMR, mind you. So it doesn't really help me as far as getting serious opponents. But we're just about at the point where I'm done with all these factions as well, at least, so this is potent. It is the one downside for spraying out your fleet, mind you, if you are aware of point defense being a huge liability. Ooh, you got something for me to play with.
Engines engaged. Where shall we strike?
I want to keep boring you. I do have Honor the Chapter though, and let's deny these reactivations, shall we? I think that's what I'm gonna do.
At your command.
The enemy has accumulated 25% of strategic points.
Huh, interesting. Oh, it's because of all the critical hits on everything else. This is like the one ship that's not crippled right now. As funny as it sounds.
Repositioning.
There. I think we're golden now. It should be about over. Again, I'm messing up on my control a little bit, but I deactivated this one point. I might as well go grab that there. I'm a little bit surprised he didn't blow up his ships just yet. I'm a little bit worried about that, if I were to be honest.
Give us purpose.
Okay, that should be it there outside of any additional frigates that might be here. Maybe.
Moving to position.
Because I don't really do a lot of damage, ideally. Although these critical hits are starting to pay off. A lot of it is probably due to the fact of focusing on weaponry, but... Where's the frigate? Okay, it's over on the left.
I am listening.
I can easily deal with this. Hell, I'm half tempted to fire boring torpedoes as well.
On course.
Okay, let's end this. If it's just one frigate, I'm fine in this regard. Also, let me turn off... Oh, the reason I'm doing a bad job controlling them is because I still have the focusing fire or lock-on target set up. That's not really what I initially used the focus fire for, mind you, but
Underway.
I guess our opponent's going to try and drag this out some. Try to, anyway.
To where we are needed.
Where's my other frigate? Oh, ah!
At your
Now he's going to blow him up. Oh god, abort. Evasive maneuvers, get the hell out of here.
You have accumulated 25% of strategic points. You have accumulated 50% of strategic points.
Yeah, that was the one thing I kind of may have screwed up on with the stasis bomb. That would have hurt like hell. And I wouldn't have been able to get out in time. Especially since it's, what, a 20-second duration? Mind you, I can't remember exactly how close I was to those capital ships, mind you, or at least the Grand Cruiser and Battleship. It seemed like another underwhelming match, considering how easily I crippled the fleet, mind you. Although you see how much damage I've been doing to those things, I would not have won in a straight-up fight just because of... Really? Just because of the shields alone. Disruption Bomb would have been my only saving grace if my opponent knew how to deal with those torpedoes. And spraying out 2x2 is not a good idea. I don't even think my opponent had brace for impact. So I tried. Again, this is like my 6th match doing for this recording, and still potentially underwhelming for those who wanted some real matches. Hopefully, when I'm done with Corsairs, what I'm planning on doing after I do my final video with the Corsairs is I'm going to focus at least an entire week on a single faction, and that should hopefully, in theory, alleviate a lot of our problems here. Well, I say that, and then the game decided to boot me out. It wasn't on my end, I swear. Okay, I guess we'll leave it at that, but my plan is to focus on individual factions so I can fine-tune them, learn them, and as a good constellation prize, it'll give me some really refined matchmaking, here's hoping, as opposed to the sporadic 2-day kind of swap between factions I've currently been doing, which is probably the main reason why a lot of my opponents can potentially be less skilled, but there have been some really good matches beforehand. My warm-up game was against Yukari. If I haven't mentioned it already, I can't remember. That was really damn close and tense. It just had the one downside of me constantly, running out of combustion gauge and the battleship's blowing up on me, mind you, but that was really damn close otherwise. Probably the best one out of all these 6 of these matches, maybe. Hard to say.